Tonight, demanding government help after a private school closes. Teenagers in Davidson swear off alcohol for a week. And the Reform Party gains popularity in the West.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ted Deller.
And I'm Cathy Little. Well, there have been a lot of changes to our show over the past few weeks. A new set, new theme music, and now this fellow from Winnipeg, our new co-host. Welcome to Newsday, Ted.
Thanks, Cathy. It's good to be here. Lots of nice, exciting people, and lots of unpacking, let me tell you.
Okay, well, we'll be talking to Ted a little bit later in the broadcast, find out a little bit more about him. But first, we'll get down to business tonight, and our first story tonight is about business, a business that went on the rocks, the Robertson Career College. More than 200 students in Saskatoon and Regina are looking for teachers today. Robertson's campuses closed in both cities on Friday, and now some people enrolled at the college want the provincial government to step in and help out. Marc Genuist reports.
Last week, these students were learning to become medical secretaries. Now they're learning how to apply political pressure. They're picketing the Premier's office in Saskatoon. Their school, Robertson Career College, closed on Friday. The note on the door says the school has run out of money. Part of that money came from these students. Some have paid up to $5,000 for classes.
We have paid more than two-thirds, I'd say, of our tuition fee, and then we'll be expected to pay it back. Like it's on a student loan, we'd be expected to pay it back, and for what? We don't really have anything to show for it. 7 months of our time for nothing.
The NDP says the province should run the school until these students can finish their classes.
We should put a trustee in, take over the school and run it until they can make some other arrangements. That's what I would suggest.
These students don't feel reassured by the government's plans.
One of the girls in my class phoned Regina this morning, and they said everything is just frozen until they know something.
The Education Department wants students to take classes in other vocational schools. Some are looking to see if other private schools will accept them. It's still not clear if students will have to pay more to switch schools. Some students just don't want to switch.
The one college that would be close to what Robertson's was offering, they don't really recognize the same courses. They have the same courses, but the marks and grades that we've made at Robertson's wouldn't be recognized there. We'd have to take their exams to prove that we could pass.
But the Robertson colleges may reopen on Wednesday. The president of Robertson Colleges, Donald Thomas, lives in Winnipeg.
Thomas says he met with someone who might want to buy his schools this morning. He says he'll know tomorrow afternoon if the deal goes through. But if it doesn't, he says students will have to go elsewhere to finish their classes. Marc Genuist, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Liberal senators may not think the GST is going to become law, but a lot of people in Saskatchewan do. More than 250,000 people have already applied for a special tax credit. But as Alethea Foster tells us, not everyone is going to qualify for the rebate.
Tax time is never fun, and it's always complicated. So you're forgiven if you manage to miss this form in your 1989 tax return. But it's a form that could be worth money to you. A single individual could get about $250.
This credit, the Goods and Services Tax Credit, which is proposed to be paid in December, will assist modest income Canadians in the amount of taxes that they pay on the different services and goods that they'll buy starting in 1991.
If the GST passes, the GST credit will replace the federal sales tax credit. It's based on your income and the size of your family. About 300,000 Saskatchewan people have applied to the tune of about $25 million. And the tax department figures there are even more people out there.
It's also become apparent that a lot of individuals between the ages of 20 and 30, especially students, did not make application because of a misconception that the income amounts were based on their parents' income and not their own. In fact, they do qualify. It's based on their net income, and they can still apply. It's not too late to apply.
If the GST passes, Shepherd says checks could be in the mail as early as December. And in these days of controversy about the tax, Shepherd denies the credit is a bribe to bring people on side. She says applying for the credit doesn't mean you support the GST. It's just something that you're entitled to. Alethea Foster, CBC News, Regina.
A lot of people think that once it gets straight, everything's just hunky-dory, and it's not.
What are some of your training? Aftercare at Marianne Graham Collegiate, helping troubled teens stay off drugs and alcohol. That story coming up on Newsday.
More news on Pratt & Whitney tonight. The aeronautics firm is closing its plant in Longueuil, Quebec. The Montreal-based company is going to replace the old assembly plant with 3 new ones. Pratt & Whitney officials have confirmed they're thinking about building one of those plants in Western Canada.
And as we told you last week on Newsday, Saskatoon is thought to be in the running. The other city is Calgary. Pratt & Whitney officials were in Saskatoon last month for talks with civic and provincial leaders. If built here, the assembly plant would probably employ 400 to 500 workers. Ted?
Francophones from around the province met in Saskatoon over the weekend, and one of the main problems they talked about was French education. French education, that is, after the death of the Meech Lake Accord. Marianne Klowak reports.
There are 26,000 French-speaking people in Saskatchewan. Most live in communities like Gravelbourg and Saint Denis, communities that welcome bilingualism. Hundreds of Francophones turned out for the annual meeting of the French Cultural Association in Saskatoon. For most, it was their first meeting as a group since the failure of Meech Lake. Feelings of frustration, confusion, and anger with the federal and provincial governments were running high.
The larger picture is not an anti-French backlash, even though that's how it's been labeled. What it is a community at large that is being totally torn apart by a lack of consistency and a lack of leadership in policies of this provincial government and the federal government. And how it's impacting on our community is that we are not getting a clear message from the federal government or the provincial government as to the status of official bilingualism in this country.
Busho Stradecki is referring to rural communities in Saskatchewan that have declared themselves English-speaking only, a move that's causing conflicts.
The French population is decreasing every year, and if we don't stop it, the whole Francophone community might be wiped out within the next 20 years.
Last year we have a lot of problems right in Gravelbourg about the French school there, and in the immediate area of the Gravelbourg too, because we have movement from APEC, and many municipalities around Gravelbourg decide to be only English municipality. So we have a strong current against French last year.
French schools in the province are controlled by English school boards, even though Francophone parents want a legal challenge to set up their own school board. The provincial government is delaying in putting that legislation into place.
That's one of the costs of the lack of leadership that we're all seeing.
French parents were hoping to see the new school board in place by this fall, but that didn't happen. Those attending the meeting say they'll continue to push the provincial government for what is legally theirs. Marianne Klowak, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Beverly Ray Johnstone of Saskatoon will soon know if she'll have to stand trial for murder. Johnstone was charged last March after the body of Gary Malm was found in a house in Warman. He'd been bludgeoned to death. Johnstone's preliminary hearing wrapped up today. The judge will decide by Wednesday if the case will go to trial.
The STC scandal is continuing its long and winding journey through the justice system. 5 more people were in court in Regina today. Not the big players, the 2 former bus company executives. Donald Castle and Darrell Lowry have already pleaded not guilty and have had court dates set. Today, 5 so-called minor players made an appearance, including workers with a construction outfit and an electrical company. They're charged with a number of offenses, mostly fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud. All 5 have pleaded not guilty. They're due back in court in January.
Almost everybody's heard of Oktoberfest, a week-long celebration held every fall. It involves lots of food and lots of booze, usually beer. Well, students in Davidson are promoting a slightly different event. They call it Oktoberfast. As Marianne Klowak tells us, the idea is to have fun without having alcohol.
There are more than 400 students at the high school and elementary school in Davidson. For the past few days, a special committee of students and parents have been promoting the idea that kids can have fun without alcohol. Today, they're watching an air band contest. The teachers are the performers. Outside the gymnasium, $1 pledges line the hallways, challenging students and parents to give up alcohol for a week. It's called Oktoberfast.
Probably about 80% of the grade 12s drink, or if not have. Actually, probably everyone in the grade 12s have drank. And it's not a problem yet, but if we don't get the awareness out, it will be a problem.
Each person it's their own honor, whether they give the dollar at the end or not. We only want the dollar if they've stayed dry a week. If they have not stayed dry a week, we don't want their dirty money.
Some students say the school had a bad reputation for alcohol abuse a few years ago. They say Oktoberfest is helping to change attitudes about drinking.
There's the ones that thought, oh boy, grade 9's coming, that's when I get to go out to parties and drink and get loaded. But it has changed my attitude on the whole thing, because when Oktoberfest did start and the serious content of drinking and how easy it is to get hooked, I've lacked off a lot myself.
The students even have pledges from restaurants and businesses in the community. The local bar says it admires what the students are doing, but it says there are those who don't honor their pledge. The bar had a cabaret on the weekend.
And people had signed pledges that they weren't going to drink. And not very often you go to a cabaret, you don't have a drink.
Church says one year the Davidson Hotel unknowingly ran its Oktoberfest at the same time as the school's Oktoberfest. But she says that hasn't happened again. The students say they'll use the money that's raised to buy playground equipment for a nearby park. Marianne Klowak, CBC News, Davidson.
Well, be on the lookout. The Cancer Society's fundraiser is back for its 4th year. It's called Jail and Bail. Today, some people from the society got together with some members of the university's drama department to demonstrate what the campaign is all about. Jeff Brown was there when the show got underway.
I think so.
It was a routine interview when...
Something that...
All right.
Oh,
my God. His name is Big Boy. I do interviews around here. Go ahead. Ask the questions. The Cancer Society's Jail and Bail returned. Today it's drama, but next Tuesday the arrests begin. Even Dick Tracy's getting involved.
I've got the whole lot of you.
Hi, Dick. We thought you were never going to get here. We heard the call 5 minutes ago on our watch radio.
You know gambling's illegal in this town, and you're gambling with your lives. Ooh, what about boys? What about?
Do you have $600 cash with you?
No, I don't.
So beware. Almost anyone can be arrested. To get out, you have to raise your own bail by phoning for pledges for the Cancer Society.
People have so much fun they don't want to leave. After their hour's up, they say, no, I want to stay. I have to raise the rest of this bail.
Burnett says with the help of people like Dick Tracy and Big Boy, they should be able to raise about $90,000 this year. Jeff Brown, CBC News, Saskatoon.
All right, let's head now to a man who's outstanding in his own field. Eric Forbes joins us with a sneak preview of what we can expect in the weather. Eric?
This first day of the week has turned out to be absolutely beautiful. It's a perfect afternoon. Warm day today, even warmer tomorrow. A low tonight of -3, and we could get up to 14 tomorrow. We'll see some more clouds later in the day tomorrow. I have more on the weather a little later.
Thank you, Eric. And now, Doug, we're going to find out a little bit about sports. We had some out-of-town visitors playing volleyball.
But first, I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh,
I turn my back on you for the weekend, and you take up with another man. I can't believe it.
He's younger than you
And
are.
he's younger than I am.
Better
He's better
looking.
looking than I am. He can read better. Well, if you're looking for something with a little international flavor tonight, why not stop? You know what? I like it over here better by myself. Why not stop by the U of S Education Gym? The Husky women's volleyball team is playing host to the Japan College of Physical Education at 7:30. Saskatchewan coach Marc Genuist hopes his underdogs serve up some surprises tonight.
We've had some chances to train with them together the last couple of days over the weekend, and our girls are able to stay with them and match them, well, maybe for 2/3 of the game, and every once in a while one of the wheels falls off and they run on maybe 2 or 3 points with us, but for the majority of the time we're able to stay with them, and it's really exciting ball for us to play in, and I'm sure for people to just sit and spectate also.
And I'll have more on the Japanese women's team that's visiting here, and a look at yesterday's Riders-Argos game. And I'm going out to pout for a bit, so you guys go ahead and do what the two of you do.
All right, domo arigato. Do you know what that means? That's thank you in Japanese.
I don't want to know.
He's going to be in a snit for weeks now.
Well, we'll hope you'll come back later on.
Okay.
All right, still to come on CBC Newsday, motorists in Hungary find a way to force gas prices down.
And still ahead, teenage drug addicts learn how to say no. Stay with us.
Well, they're all teenagers, they're all recovered addicts, and chances are good they're going to stay sober and off drugs. A group of Saskatoon high school students is getting special help after spending some time at treatment centers. The innovative program is just 2 months old, and as Amy Jo Ehman tells us, the teens who've taken it are already beginning to beat the odds.
When most students are rolling out of bed, 18-year-old Sherry Sayers is already on her way to school. It's 7:15, the sun just brightening a cool fall morning. She doesn't go to the closest high school. She tried that last year and it was too hard. Not the classes. The hard part was going to class sober.
I started to drink when I was 14, and then I quit when I was 17. I didn't go to school drunk as many times as I did stoned, so because drunk was more noticeable.
A year and a half ago, Sayers dried out at the White Spruce Treatment Center in southeast Saskatchewan. She went back to high school enthusiastic, ready to be a model student.
At first I was excited, you know, I'm tough, I'm going back to my school, I'm going to conquer this. But then, you know, people would talk about me behind my back, and I went through depression periods all the time, you know, and not saying that I won't do it here, but at least here I can come to school, and our first period I can say I'm going through depression.
Lord, with your grace, may I recognize my own devil and turn it over to you.
First period starts with meditation and a chance to say just how she's feeling. It's easier here to open up in her new class at Marianne Collegiate. All her classmates came here the same way, through drugs and drying out. It's hoped this program will succeed where others have failed. It's called Aftercare because these kids need special care even after they leave the drug treatment center. It's the first program of its kind in Canada, and school officials across the country are watching to gauge its success.
It's real tough for kids coming back, real tough. I don't think people understand that. But
Larry Larson understands the odds. Over the years, he's counseled 60 kids who dried out at treatment centers. Only 2 stayed dry after going back to school.
what happens is they start getting back into some of their old behaviors. They may sleep in a day or two so they miss a class. Then they get worried because they haven't gone to that class in a couple of days and they've missed an assignment. Then they skip a class, and pretty soon one miss is turned into 2, which is turns into 5, which turns into 10, so they drop that class, maybe their first one of 5, and then the same thing happens in another one.
There are 14 students in Aftercare, and after 2 months of school, just 1 dropout.
You're identifying the feeling that you have, then you're owning it.
In their own classroom, the Aftercare students learn how to cope with life without getting high. Most of them spend the whole day here studying math and English and life skills until they have enough confidence to venture down the hallway to a regular class.
When I was in White Spruce, I put really serious expectations on myself. And, you know, I tried really hard to carry through with it, but I hit a really emotional bottom where I just, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I was really hurting, and I ended up coming here. And
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
This is group, where they face their problems head on. They pour out their hearts and sometimes their tears, trying to understand what drove them to drugs in the first place. For these students, it's the most important part of the school day.
Okay, well, let's talk about some triggers. Like, what are some of your triggers? Where are you in danger?
I don't really get triggers for drinking, but triggers for old behaviors, such as, you know, like thinking of doing things I used to do, like vandalizing and that.
They're so honest. They're always inventorying themselves. How am I? How are people seeing me? What am I doing right to help myself? There aren't very many kids who do that. There aren't very many adults who do that. So compare the old you and the new you. What's it like now? What's the old one like? What's the new one like? What do we see here?
I don't know, I guess I was really, like, I didn't care about anything or anybody. And I was really negative. All I really wanted was to get high and skip school and all that. And the new me, I guess, the biggest thing I've noticed is that I care about things now. I try hard to be very responsible.
Jessie Mayhew has more responsibilities than most teenagers. She was a mother at 14, an alcoholic at 15. Now at 16, she's a recovered addict.
I didn't start using until she was about a year old. There's a baby and going to school and trying to fit in and all that, and it just comes really big pressure, eh? And when I got high, I felt like, you know, I don't have to give a shit about anything.
For most of the last school year, she was stoned. Her grades dropped from A's to D's. Now, after treatment, she's back at home with her parents and 23-month-old Andrea.
Like when she was using it, this place was a madhouse, just crazy.
You know, we were really frightened when Jessie came out of treatment. That she had about a month, I think, before she was going to go back to school, and that month we were just on pins and needles, wondering what was going to happen. Was she going to get back with using friends, or, you know, was she going to have a relapse?
Jessie doubts she could have resisted the drugs if she'd gone back to her old school.
A lot of people think that once you get straight, everything's just hunky-dory, and it's not. You know, there's a lot of problems after you get straight. And what's the truth? Being straight and having that support and that place where I can talk about what's bugging me, you know, that means I won't take it out on her.
Now she worries her daughter will also turn to drugs someday.
We're trying to wean her off the bottle, and she clings to it like there's nothing else in life with this bottle, and I start thinking, you know, she's already got an addictive personality. It's got a funny nose. It scares me a lot, because the last thing I really want is for her to have to go through what I went through.
For CBC News, I'm Amy Jo Ehman in Saskatoon.
Coming up on Newsday, Eric Forbes and the weather.
And still ahead, a controversy over Halloween costumes. We'll ask what you think. Stay with us.
A lot of blue sky in that picture, Eric. Is that going to continue?
Yeah, for a couple of days, decent weather, nice warm weather. And welcome to Saskatoon. We have another warm day for you here, Ted.
Good stuff.
Here's what we have right now in Saskatoon. The temperature, 11, sunny skies, winds from the west at 11 right now. Today, that's the current temperature, our high, 11 degrees. The normal is 6 degrees. We're doing okay in that department, a low of -3. And normally it's -4, so we're a little better off there, too. Sunrise tomorrow, 7:59. The sun setting at 6:42 around the province right now. A lot of clear sky, just a little bit of cloud way up around Cree Lake and further north, but elsewhere, as you can see, nice temperatures. Canadian hotspot, not on there, but it's Rock Glen, Saskatchewan. Take a bow down that way, 15 degrees. Okay. Down east, St. John's, Newfoundland, cloudy skies there, 4 degrees. Halifax, they've got the showers, 7 there, 6 at Fredericton, cloudy skies and cloudy up around northern Quebec and Labrador, clear south of there. Montreal, 1 at Cool Lake, 5 degrees right now at Toronto. Now let's check the west. Winnipeg, they've got the cloud, but further north, clear skies. Winnipeg, 10, 14 Regina, 11 here, cloud further north, 11 degrees for Yellowknife. And that's a cool day, as you can see, and it's going to be like that about a month from now, probably. 9 degrees in Edmonton, 10 degrees, Calgary, clear skies there, and over in BC, cloudy skies. Victoria, Vancouver, showers, 10 at Victoria, 11 Vancouver, and 0 up at Whitehorse, and clear skies. Satellite shot shows you a fair amount of mid-level cloud there, and then denser cloud that's moved off further to the east. What we've got around here to look forward to is a low that's off the coast. It's very dense, a lot of very tight isobars around it. That means that it's going to spin off some weather later in the week. Now, it won't get that much closer to us. The high that gave us the clear skies is moving, well, it's moving off to the east, so well into the east, but the ridge behind it tomorrow. So with that, we will have clear skies, some cloud in the afternoon as that low begins to affect us. Further north, they'll get more in the way of cloud, and it's going to be okay in terms of temperatures, clear skies tomorrow, and probably on Wednesday too. And then you'll see that low have a bearing on our weather. The forecast now, first of all, in the north tonight, clear skies, light winds, a low of -7. And for tomorrow, sunny in the morning, afternoon flurries as that trough develops in the north as the low advances. Southeast winds at 20 and a high of 3. For Saskatoon tonight, clear skies, light winds and a low of -3. And for tomorrow, mainly sunny, and then the clouds in the afternoon, southeast winds at 20, a high of 13 degrees. And it looks like Wednesday will be okay too. And then by Thursday, cooler temperatures, cloudy skies. It's not looking so great for Friday, but we'll work on that. From Stacy Billette, we have this fine picture. And Stacy's in grade 1 at Buffalo River Band School in Dillon, Saskatchewan. Here's the address to send the pictures to. CBC TV, 5th floor, CN Tower, Saskatoon, S7K1J5. Ted?
All right, thanks, Eric. Well, let's hope we can look forward to a little good weather. And on Wednesday night, we can look forward to dishing out candy to all sorts of little ghosts, goblins, and swashbuckling pirates. And probably a whole lot of Ninja Turtles as well. Well, trick-or-treating on Halloween is a tradition. So is dressing up for school parties and dances. But at least 2 schools in Saskatoon want to change that tradition.
Students at Bishop Mahoney held a Halloween dance Friday night, but they were asked by their principal not to dress up in demonic costumes.
I think we're bringing across to the students that, in fact, we're not celebrating the druid or the pagan atmosphere of it. We'd like them to think of, as I say, All Saints' Eve.
And at Dundonald School, students won't be dressing up at all for classes. The principal there says it's too time-consuming and it isn't fair to the parents who can't afford costumes. This mother will miss the tradition.
I'd like to see them in costumes. I think it makes it a lot more fun for them. Gets them all geared up for the evening.
So tonight on Newsday Talkback, we'd like to get your reaction. Do you think schools should ban Halloween costume parties? Call us with your comment between 7 and 7:30 at 956-7413. That's 956-7413. We'll broadcast some of your comments tomorrow on Newsday.
Well, coming up on Newsday tonight, Canadians are worried about the recession.
And still ahead, hard times in Hartford knock a hotel out of business.
Well, the federal government got another earful today over the GST. This time, opposition MPs were upset about a remark made by Conservative Jim Hawkes. Hawkes told CBC Radio over the weekend that if anybody's going to get hurt by the new tax, it will be Central Canada, specifically Ontario and Quebec. As Julie Van Dusen reports, that comment didn't go over very well in the Commons.
The opposition zeroed in on what they perceived to be a weak link in the Tory defense of the GST. Comments made over the weekend by the Conservative whip, Jim Hawkes.
The chief Conservative whip on national radio yesterday when he said if anybody is going to get hurt, it's the central part of this country, Ontario and Quebec, under the GST. And I ask him again if he agrees with that statement, which is correct also as far as the rest of the country is concerned. Then I ask him, will he axe that tax now and not wait till after the next election when it will be done by the Liberals who will be on the other side of the House?
Right. Hawkes is the man right behind the Prime Minister. His boss was quick to defend him.
What the whip was indicating that there will be about $9 billion of new economic activity generated in Canada as a result of the imposition of the GST, that it will create clearly thousands of new jobs, many of them in Ontario. But one of the chief regions to benefit from this will be in Western Canada.
Despite the millions, Mr. Speaker, in government propaganda, this government has still not persuaded people to support the GST. So I ask the government, will this government listen to those people who are hurting so badly across this country? Will this government change its economic policies? And above all, will this government get rid of the GST?
We know it is unpopular, but we know that in the longer haul, it will benefit Canada, it will make for greater prosperity and greater tax fairness, and at the end of the day, when the GST has passed, it will be seen to be in Canada's national interest. We are not doing it because it is popular, we are doing it because it is right.
After question period, Jim Hawkes tried to clarify his statements about the GST.
In the context of the research data, that every region is going to grow because of the switch, but the region that grows the least is Ontario, the region that grows the most is the West.
And the Prime Minister lashed out at Liberal leader Jean Chrétien for the pledge he made over the weekend to kill the GST if elected.
10 days ago, he indicated that he would probably retain parts of the GST. Now he's changed his mind again. This is a man who has no philosophy whatsoever that guides him, no sense of moorings to keep him on course. Whatever the headlines say in the morning, whatever the popularity polls say.
But the opposition feels on solid ground when it condemns the GST. The latest CBC Globe and Mail poll shows that 75% of Canadians oppose the tax. This even though the Conservatives have spent a year and millions of dollars trying to sell it. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
The GST isn't all that's on the minds of Canadians. The same poll shows they're worried about the economy. The nation is in a sour mood, according to the survey, and people are blaming tough times on politicians, especially the Tories in Ottawa. In Western Canada, there's growing support for the Reform Party. Paul Adams now with more on what disgruntled voters are thinking on the prairies and elsewhere.
Time was people on the prairies could be counted on to send a solid block of Tories to Ottawa at every election. Times have changed. The Liberals now lead the other parties on the prairies with 33%, then the NDP at 29%, followed by the quickly growing Reform Party at 24%. The Tories languish in last place with just 13%. When people on the prairies are asked to rate the performance of the federal government, just 7% say they're satisfied. 92% say they're dissatisfied. And the anger is focusing on the Prime Minister. When asked to rate his trustworthiness on a scale of 1 to 10, 35% of people on the prairies give Mulroney the lowest possible score, 1. 60% give him 3 or lower. People on the prairies are very worried about the future of the economy. Only 14% are confident about the economy in the next year. 82% say they have little or no confidence. And they don't like federal economic policies. On the GST, 83% are opposed to the tax. Meanwhile, there is substantial support for Liberal attempts to block the new tax in the Senate. That's helping Jean Chrétien rebuild his party on the prairies.
Can you honestly look?
But the real earthquake in prairie politics may be coming from the Reform Party. The poll shows its supporters are deeply disillusioned with the political process and with the current crop of politicians. If current trends hold up until the next election, there could be 4 parties fighting it out for the prairie vote, and that could make federal politics on the prairies the most volatile and unpredictable of any region in the country. Paul Adams, CBC News, Toronto.
The survey was conducted between October the 15th and 20th. It's considered to be accurate within 2.2 percentage points, 19 times out of 20.
And the results of another poll were released today, a Gallup poll. It shows that more than 75% of Canadians don't like the way Brian Mulroney is doing his job. That's the highest disapproval rating since Gallup began polling 30 years ago.
The United Nations Security Council has adopted a resolution holding Iraq responsible for war damages. The resolution touches on a variety of allegations being made about the Iraqi occupation, and it demands an end to all hostage-taking and property destruction.
In France, meantime, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev said today he's still hoping for a diplomatic end to the crisis. But he also says the international community should not make any compromises with Saddam Hussein.
Drivers in Hungary have won a victory at the fuel pumps. They'd been waging a battle over gas prices, including a strike that crippled the country. As Tom Fenton reports, the government was left with 2 choices: lower taxes or leave office.
Traffic is flowing again this morning on the bridges that link Buda and Pest, the 2 halves of the capital. Roadblocks have disappeared on major arteries. People are able to go to work after a 3-day taxi and truck driver strike that paralyzed the country. Hungarians will now have to pay only $3.20 a gallon for premium gasoline instead of the $4 decreed by the government. The break came last night at a nationally televised showdown between the beleaguered government and striking taxi and truck drivers. The government blamed the increase on the Gulf crisis at a shortage in deliveries from the Soviet Union, but most of the increase was caused by higher taxes. In the end, it was the taxi and truck drivers who won, forcing the government to cave in and partially roll back the price rise that touched off the protests. The strikers had brought the country to a standstill. Roadblocks stopped traffic in all major cities and cut off most of the country from the rest of the world. The strike quickly became a major challenge to the government. Police refused to intervene and stood by passively as the country teetered on the edge of another revolution. There were angry protests in front of the parliament, which will now decide whether future increases should be linked to world prices. The lesson for the government is that brutal price increases will not work, especially when it has not yet tackled the basic problem of reforming the economy. Hungarians face a bleak winter with a weak government whose credibility has been severely damaged. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Budapest.
More changes in the Soviet Union tonight. A non-communist coalition seems to have won elections in the Republic of Georgia, and the Round Table Free Georgia coalition is promising to fight for full independence from the USSR. Sunday's election was the first true multi-party vote in Soviet history. About 35 parties ran candidates. Final results aren't expected until later this week, and runoff elections for close races won't be held until next month. But it appears the coalition has won, capturing as much as 70% of the vote.
Meanwhile, tensions remain high in another Soviet republic. Troops have been sent to the southern parts of Moldova. The area is home to a Turkish minority who want independence. About 30,000 nationalists have gathered there, and the army is worried a civil war will break out.
Well, Canada isn't the only country sliding into a recession. A slumping economy south of the border has caused the collapse, literally, of a high-rise hotel. The Parkview Hilton in Hartford, Connecticut couldn't attract enough customers to stay open any longer, and no one wanted to buy the building, so demolition experts were called in. Here's how the posh place was put to bed. It was one of Hartford's first modern hotels. A crowd waved goodbye as the Hilton was finally done in by dynamite.
Seems like such a big waste.
Lots of windows.
Lots of windows going down there. Still ahead on Newsday, a new feature with Hall of Fame broadcaster Lloyd Saunders.
And coming up next, Doug Dirks in the sports.
No, of course, I always want to talk to you, Doug.
That was great. You know, I wonder if the folks at home noticed those new bus boards today. Aren't they nice?
I haven't actually seen one.
Well, let me tell you, they're great except for one little mistake.
What was that, Doug?
It says Cathy and Little Ted Deller. They put it in the wrong place.
Little John, Little Ted.
That's right. I'm over here by myself again, folks. And be sure to lace up your Tiger volleyball shoes. Grab your English-Japanese dictionary and run down to the U of S Education Gym. That is, right after the sports. You should get there just in time to see a great international volleyball match between the Huskies and a top Japanese women's team.
The Japanese Women's College of Physical Education team spent the weekend training with the Huskies. Nichijutai coach Kayazuki Takahashi says it's been a great experience for his young players.
My team members are first time come to Canada, but I think the players good experience to have.
Husky coach Mark Tennant echoes Takahashi's sentiments. Tennant's team is picking up all kinds of playing tips from their Japanese counterparts, and they're having a great time doing it.
I think the volleyball is a tool and really a door opener for this cultural exchange and for the friendships to form, and so that's, I think, one of the real positive results of this. And playing against such a superior team, we can't help as a team ourselves improving the volleyball, so from both aspects, like the cultural and the volleyball, is so positive that no matter what the score tonight, we're going to be winners.
The Huskies are also using the Japanese visit as a recruiting tool. Andrea Dubray of Meadow Lake is here to check out the U of S volleyball program. She spent this morning training with the Japanese team, and it turns out volleyball is a universal language.
They talk to us and they repeat it over and over until we understand. And we just try and say English, like we just talk to them in English and then they say what, and then they nod their head if it's right or whatever. So, learned a couple of words, thank you.
You're welcome, Andrea. Hope you enjoy tonight's match.
And it should be a very entertaining match. I'll have the highlights at 11 o'clock. The Saskatchewan Roughriders should start printing disclaimers on their game tickets. So something like watching these games could be dangerous to your health and your sanity. The Riders led 10-3 at the end of 15 minutes, but the Argos recover on the arm of Ricky Foggy on in relief of injured starter John Kangemi. Foggy hooks up with Randy Marriott for a 64-yard touchdown. That tied the game at 10. Foggy lets his feet do the talking on the next Argos score. He rolls out and gets a great block from the pinball. Rider fans didn't like the smell of a 20-13 Argo halftime lead. Nice hat, lady. But Kent Austin and the Riders come out smelling sweet in the second half. Orville Lee takes the handoff and rambles 40 yards for the touchdown, tying the game at 20. Then it's time for some rare Rider razzle-dazzle. Austin on the flip to Lucius Floyd to Don Narcisse for a 20-yard touchdown and a 27-20 Saskatchewan lead. Nice play, but the Argos aren't done quite yet. Foggy drops back and hits Jeff Boyd with a 5-yard touchdown pass. Toronto adds the 2-point conversion. They lead 31-30 at that point. So with no time left on the clock, it's up to Robo-Kicker and his smoking foot to nail a 47-yard field goal. The Riders pull out a heart-stopping 33-31 win. And if the Riders paid Ridgway by the clutch point, he'd be rich, but they don't, so Dave will just have to be satisfied with giving the Riders a 9-8 record. Well, with just a week left to go in the regular season, every game in the CFL is a big one. The Riders did a little scoreboard watching yesterday. We start our quick video retrospective in Edmonton. Mike Kerrigan woke up a dozing Commonwealth Stadium crowd with this 75-yard catch and run gem to Earl Winfield in the second quarter. That made it 11-3 for the Ticats. Paul Osbaldiston and Ray McAreedy played kickball until the Eskimos finally take their first lead of the game in the third quarter. Tracy Ham cooks up a 22-yard strike to Keith Wright. Edmonton goes on to snap their 4-game losing streak by a score of 25-15. Jason and company showed up a little early for Halloween in Ottawa, but it's Damon Allen doing the early hatchet job on the Winnipeg defense, hitting David Williams with a 47-yard touchdown pass, making it 17-7 Ottawa in the second quarter. The Bombers threaten just a couple of minutes later. This time it's the Rider defense throwing a scare into Robert Mims. He coughs up the ball. Ottawa recovers it on the way to a 27-18 win over Winnipeg. Now the Eskimo win means the Riders can finish no better than second in the West. Saskatchewan wraps up the regular season Saturday night in BC. The Eskimos and Stampeders play off for first place Sunday afternoon at Calgary. Winnipeg will finish first in the East despite their loss to Ottawa. Toronto has wrapped up second and will host the Eastern semifinal. The Argos' opponent could be determined on the final day of the 1990 season. Ottawa's at Toronto Saturday night. The Ticats are in Winnipeg Sunday, so stock up on those potato chips, all of you couch potatoes. I can tell you for sure that the Husky football team will host the Canada West Final Saturday, November 10th at Griffith Stadium. Calgary and UBC play off for the trip to Saskatoon next weekend. Now, if you were more than a little disappointed in last week's heavyweight fight between Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield, you should just hear what Lloyd Saunders has to say about it. And you will, in the first of a series of editorials you'll see on Newsday.
Gotti against Macchione. You know, young boxers today must be pretty cynical when they see what's happening in the professional ring. Now, a couple of things really bother me. First, what happened to Buster Douglas? When he fought Mike Tyson, he looked like a boxer. He had a lot of class because he was in shape. He was certainly a great fighter. Last week, when he fought Evander Holyfield, he looked like a big slob, completely out of shape. You've got to wonder what happened to Douglas between those two fights. Now, I don't blame the trainers, I blame the fighters. When they become rich and famous, they forget where they came from. They forget the lot of hard work and sweat that got them there. Last week's fight was a total farce. And now we're hearing about another farce. Sugar Ray Leonard may be coming back in the ring, and he may be fighting very soon. We all know that Sugar Ray Leonard is doing this only for that almighty dollar. Nobody disputes that Sugar Ray Leonard has been a great fighter in his time, but enough is enough. What allows fighters to hold 2 or 3 division titles? Well, it's the number of divisions they have in the game. A few extra stakes, for example, and a fighter can move up a division or 2, hold the mayo, and hold the gravy, and a fighter can go down a division or 2. What we need to stop a fighter from holding several division titles is to decrease the number of divisions in boxing. It'll make the competition keener, and it certainly will stop the big money grab. I hope that Sugar Ray Leonard will stop this silly nonsense, and that Big Buster Douglas the Slob has learned his lesson. If they have, then boxing will be a lot better off for it. I'm Lloyd Saunders.
Well said. Lloyd beats the heck out of Vanna Speaks. Of course, Vanna does have better legs than Lloyd. The Maple Leafs didn't have to look far for their new coach. Former assistant coach Tom Watt moves his neck onto the main guillotine. Watt's first official game as head coach is tomorrow against the North Stars at the Gardens. And Ted, won't be long before he's out the door, too. They've had 13 coaches in the past 12 years.
High turnover.
I'd say, that's for sure.
Revolving door policy.
Long line at the unemployment office.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay.
Talk to you again later on. We'll be right back.
Now to recap our top story tonight, some students from Robertson Career College spent part of the day pounding the pavement in front of the Premier's Saskatoon office. They want help with finishing their courses. The colleges in Saskatoon and Regina shut down Friday. Now some of the students and the NDP say the provincial government should help out. The Education Minister said late today that he will give his response tomorrow in Regina.
As we told you earlier, 2 schools in Saskatoon want a dress code for Halloween. Angels are in, ghosts, goblins, and other demonic creatures are out. The school administrators say those kinds of outfits don't promote the true meaning of Halloween, but we'd like to get your reaction. Our talkback question tonight, do you think schools should ban Halloween costume parties? Call us with your comment between 7 and 7:30 at 956-7413. That's 956-7413. We'll broadcast some of your comments tomorrow on Newsday. And Eric, not a bad day today, but even better yesterday. I thought it was really cold when I looked outside, but it was nice.
It turned out okay. I actually got up to 11 degrees today. Now tomorrow is going to be a better day, up to 13 degrees, the low tonight of about -3. We'll start out with the sun and more clouds in the afternoon tomorrow. Doug?
Thanks, buddy. Eric and I spent the afternoon drawing our faces on bus boards. Just 2 things to mention, NFL football and an NHL game tonight, and we'll have highlights at 11. Cathy, Ted?
Doug, were you the one who put the mustache on my face?
I cannot tell a lie. Eric did it.
Eric, I thought so.
He was washing spray paint off.
Okay, now I think we have a little bit of time here to ask Ted a few
Do I get to answer
personal questions.
No comment.
You're from Manitoba. Tell us a little bit about. Our viewers will be interested.
Oh, I came from Portage La Prairie, a small town just west of Winnipeg, and I'm glad to be here. It's wonderful.
Yeah, okay. Well,
that's all the time I get to discuss Portage La Prairie.
We're wrapped up. Okay. Newsday final tonight at 11. Newsday tomorrow at 6. We'll see you then. Good night.
Take care.